And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Thank you for joining us for the marine portion of your broadcast. I'm meteorologist Emily Niebuhr. It's October 14th, 2023. Let's take a look at our latest for our sea ice edge. As you can see, we're starting to get, with cooler temperatures, a little bit of sea ice forming along the coast, but definitely less than the 80% concentration. It's still very early in the season, but starting to form a little bit of ice up north. Let's take a look at some of our important weather patterns today before we discuss our expected winds and waves across the state. We have most notably the remnants of Typhoon Bovelin. It's going to continue to skirt south of the Aleutian Islands, but still force some fairly strong winds, even though there's not going to be a direct movement of the system into the Aleutian Islands. It's going to be moving slowly over the next few days towards the Gulf of Alaska and continue to weaken. Meanwhile, for tonight, we have this weakening low pressure system southeast of Kodiak Island, and again, causing some pressure gradients. For Sunday, we have the low move a little more to the east, again, increasing that pressure gradient a little bit across the eastern Gulf of Alaska. Meanwhile, Bovelin is moving south, or moving to the east of the Aleutian Islands, still south of the Aleutian Islands, but impacting more of the eastern Aleutians as it progresses further east. By Monday, we have a low pressure system moving quickly in towards the Panhandle. And again, the remnants of the typhoon and an associated low pressure system slowly moving in towards the Gulf of Alaska. So your marine forecast for your Sunday. We're expecting generally waves up to 8 to 9 feet as you go outside along the Gulf of Alaska. A little weaker waves as you move northwards towards Yakutat, winds of about 10 knots, but 15 to 20 knots further south. Let's go in the interior. We're looking at waves of 2 to 3 feet, winds generally 10 knots, generally from the south. Monday, as that low pressure system moves in, we do have some gusts up to 40 in the southern portions of the Gulf of Alaska with waves up to 11 feet. And again, a little weaker towards Yakutat, ranging from 9 to 11 feet as you go northwards. But winds generally 20 to 25 knots. Interior portions, we're looking at waves of about 2 to 4 feet. Again, the greatest waves near Ketchikan, and winds generally 10 to 15 knots. For Sunday along the North Gulf of Alaska coast, we do have waves are expected in Cook Inlet, 6 to 7 feet as you come out of Homer. So expect some bigger waves as you move out of the sheltered areas of Homer. And winds of 25 to 30 knots, a little weaker as you go northwards towards Anchorage, but still waves of about 5 feet, winds of about 20 knots from the north. Along the North Gulf Coast, generally waves 7 to 8 feet, winds about 20 knots. Prince William Sound, we're looking at about 15 knots and waves 3 feet. Monday, as the pressure gradient increases, we're looking at gale force winds outside of Homer, waves up to about 14 feet. So get a very strong dynamic change as you move out from Kachemak Bay. So move with caution. Even as you move northward, waves about 12 feet, winds 30 knots. Up towards Anchorage, again, 25 knots, waves 5 feet. Prince William Sound, again, about waves 3 feet, 15 knots. And as you look along the Kenai Peninsula, we do see waves about 30, or winds 35 to 30 knots, waves 9 to 10 feet. For Sunday, for your Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island forecast, we're looking at waves of about 2 to 6 feet in Bristol Bay. Again, most sheltered near Dillingham, waves about 2 feet, winds 10 to 20 knots, increasing as you go towards the remnants of Bovelin. South of the Alaska Peninsula, we have waves of 6 to 8 feet, winds 15 to 20 knots. Near Kodiak, waves look to be about 7 feet and winds about 20 knots. For Monday, as the system moves further east, you can see a dramatic increase in waves about 13 feet north of Kodiak Bay, Winds from the north, 25 to 20 knots. Even in more sheltered areas up in Bristol Bay, we're looking at waves about 4 feet, winds 15 knots from the north. Waves near Kodiak Island up to 10 feet, winds 20 knots from the north. And south of False Pass, waves of about 8 feet, winds about 20 to 30 knots. For your Sunday forecast for the Aleutian Islands, again, we're expecting with those remnants waves of about 30 to 40, or winds 30 to 40 knots, waves up to 22 feet south of the central Aleutian Islands. Even as you go in towards the Bering Sea, we're looking at waves of about 14 to 13 feet. So definitely some intense conditions with that system. Conditioning's calming as that system moves towards the east. We're looking at waves of about 11 to 13 feet south of the Aleutian Islands and around 10 feet north of the Aleutian Islands. Meanwhile, as we go towards the eastern Aleutians, we're looking at waves up to 18 feet south of Nokiski and 12 to 14 feet north of the Aleutian Islands. So definitely intense wave conditions there. For your Sunday forecast, we're looking at, in the Pribilofs, waves about 6 feet, winds 20 knots. As you go up towards Nome, waves about 2 feet and winds 5 knots. Monday, we're looking near the Pribilofs. Waves are going to increase to about 9 feet, winds about 25 knots, with again stronger conditions as you go south of the Pribilof Islands. And as you go towards Macquarie Cook, waves of about 5 feet, winds 25 knots from the north, and even up towards Nome, we're going to see an increase in wind speed, about 20 knots, waves 4 feet. Along the North Arctic coast, even with that stagnant low, we're still going to be looking at waves of about 4 feet, 3 feet near Prudhoe Bay, winds generally 10 to 20 knots along the North Arctic coast. So go in towards channeled areas, we're looking at waves about 4 to 5 feet, winds 20 knots from the north. For Monday, conditions will calm a little bit off of Point Hope, waves of about 2 feet, winds 10 knots from the north. Higher wind intensity in the channel terrain, we're looking at waves 4 feet, 15 knot winds. Meanwhile, we're still seeing some strong winds associated with that low. We're looking at Kaktovik, 5-foot waves, winds of about 25 knots. As you go towards Ukhiavik, calmer conditions of 3-foot waves, 15 knots.